and my sobriety date is May 22nd, 2000. And today is Marvelous Monday, everybody. Yay!
And I promise you we would have got to that. So, and there is a meeting, I think, in a fellowship for people who have to control, but I don't know what that might be. Anyway, all right, here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Chris, and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is November the 23rd of 1993. I'd like to welcome everybody to today's Threads of Recovery workshop. Now, I've stated that I'm an alcoholic, and I hate being alone. Do we have any other alcoholics here today? All right. I love it. I love it. Okay, we're going to acknowledge God's presence, the moment of silence, and I'll follow that with a set-aside prayer. Lord, help me set aside everything I think I know about you, everything that I think I know about myself, everything that I think I know about my fellows, everything that I think I know about my own recovery, for a much needed new experience in you, myself and my fellows, and a new experience in my own recovery. Help me see the truth. Amen. 1058 Threads of Recovery continues to offer virtual workshops 5 days a week. To be included in our weekly email, send your request to threads1058@gmail.com. This will keep you up to date on our workshops. Our group follows the 12 traditions. We stick to our singleness of purpose, and we ask everyone to please refrain from the use of profanity when sharing. The seventh tradition states that Alcoholics Anonymous is self-supporting through their own contributions. Contributions help to cover the group's expenses, but the seventh tradition is more than simply paying for rent and other group expenses. It is both a privilege and a responsibility of individual groups and members to ensure that our organization, at every level, remains forever self-supporting and free of outside influences that might divert us from our primary purpose. The monetary amount of each contribution is secondary to the spiritual connection that joins us in unity with AA groups around the world. Seventh tradition contributions can be made using Venmo to @threadsofrecovery-1058. Details are in the chat. This is an open meeting. Open meetings are available to anyone interested in Alcoholics Anonymous program of recovery from alcoholism. Non-alcoholics may attend open meetings as observers. And now, it is my great pleasure to introduce today's speaker, my friend and yours, the illustrious Bill H.
Really? My name is Bill. I am an alcoholic, and I am going to say this out loud. The word illustrious is like beauty. It must be in the eyes of the beholder. So thank you very much, and I will ask my wife later how illustrious she thinks I am today. Karen, good to see you this morning, this afternoon, this evening. Nan, it's always good to see you this morning, this afternoon, this evening. Andrea, Teresa, Debbie, of course. Hi, Debbie. It's no longer Debbie's iPad, it's Debbie's seat. This is strange. Very nice, ladies, very nice. I want to say hi to Stephen and Annette. I say hi to 4 or 5 people, and the rest of you are saying, why didn't he say hi to me? Otis, I know how you feel. Hi, Otis. I know how sensitive Otis is. How's the candy inventory this morning, Otis? How's the candy inventory? Getting low? Uh-oh, better make a run. Anyway, I am Bill. I am an alcoholic, and my sobriety date is March 18, 1981, and for that I'm very grateful, and so are my family members. Today we're going to talk about step 6. Yes, we are going to talk about step 6 and find out how one little paragraph in the big book, like 1/4 of a page, it's the top paragraph on page 76, if you want to start looking for it now, because it's really easy to drive right past it. It's like one of those little tiny towns in northwest Alabama. It's like one of those little, what? You don't like tiny? And you can go, oh, I just missed it. I drove right through the town and if you're not careful, and I wasn't careful, you may wonder how I know these things. I was not careful. I breezed right past step 6. It's only a paragraph. It's 1/4 of a page. We're going to spend the next hour or so with a little bit of a drill down, a little bit of a deep dive into step 6. And I'll tell you why. It's because it is vital. It really is life and death to my spiritual awakening. So once again, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the folks that are here for the first time. We're really grateful you came. I'd like to say I hope you hear something that'll make you want to come back, but more importantly, I hope you feel something. I really do hope you feel something that makes you want to come back, because we do talk about the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous here, but we don't talk about the big book just to be talking about the big book. We talk about the big book because we find out what it says by reading it together, and then we help each other understand what it says by talking about it together. And while reading it and understanding it are really important, it's not going to change my life if I don't take it in, if I don't absorb it, if I don't take that understanding, take it personally, even the part I don't like, and try to apply it in my daily life. And welcome back to everybody who has been with us in this series, and actually for the last couple of years in this workshop. So today we're going to continue our study of the 12 steps, focusing on step 6. We're continuing our theme. We're looking at the steps through a little different lens in this series. It's called 2 Magnificent Standards, which I'll tell you what they are in a minute, and 7 Attributes. 2 Magnificent Standards and 7 attributes of our spiritual awakening. Not just our sobriety. Not drinking produces physical sobriety. Marky talked so well this morning about emotional sobriety, which really is recovery in the fullest sense. Some people call emotional sobriety adulthood, but that's for another story. In any event, as we all know, here's a quote from Bill Wilson, the fellow who wrote the big book with God's help, or perhaps God wrote the big book with Bill's help. Certainly a team effort, and I think God might have been the captain. But Bill gave a talk at the General Service Conference in Toronto, Canada, 1965, 30 years into this deal. And he said these words during that convention. As we know, quote, all AA progress can be reckoned in terms of just 2 words, humility and responsibility. Our whole spiritual development can be accurately measured by our degree of adherence to these magnificent standards. So the 2 magnificent standards we're going to talk about here is humility and responsibility. Ever-deepening humility accompanied by an ever greater willingness to accept and act upon clear-cut obligations. These are truly our touchstones for all growth in the life of the Spirit. They hold up to us the very essence of right being and right doing. It is by them that we are enabled to find and do God's will. That's a mouthful. It's in the outline. I don't ask you to memorize it, but read it often. I do. It reminds me a lot about why we're here. And I would suggest to you that steps 1 through 6 produce that humility he's talking about. Steps 1 through 6, and we're going to kind of see this come to pass today in step 6. Steps 1 through 6 produce enough humility in us, for us, to try to fulfill our real purpose, which is pointed out to us on page 77, which we'll be getting into the next couple of weeks. Our real purpose in the big book, the top of page 77, says this: to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. In the 12 and 12, in Alcoholics Anonymous, 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, on page 72 is this definition, very simple, very clear definition of humility. That basic ingredient of all humility, a desire to seek and do God's will. Later on page 76 of the 12 and 12, he says this: humility the willingness to move out from ourselves. I would suggest it becomes a desire to move out from ourselves toward others and toward God. So one of these two magnificent attributes, humility. The other one's responsibility. And I would suggest to you that our responsibility grows in steps 7 through 12. We become responsible to share our spiritual awakening with alcoholics. And as step 12 says, we become responsible to try to practice these principles in all our affairs. Interestingly enough, at that same convention in 1965, a former trustee by the name of Al S., said these words, and I quote, he said, "I am responsible. When anyone, anywhere, reaches out for help, I want the hand of AA always to be there. And for that, I am responsible." As you know, that's become the responsibility statement for Alcoholics Anonymous, but that's where it came from. So in this study, we're going to continue to see how the 7 attributes of the 12-step spiritual principles. I'm not saying these are all the attributes, but these are 7 pretty important ones to me. They're certainly important in my recovery. Honesty is an attribute. We grew that in steps 1, 2, and 3, and honesty continues forward with us. Forgiveness grows in us in steps 1, 2, and 3, and that continues forward. Trust. Trust is an attribute of the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. We're going to talk about trust today and next time in steps 6 and 7, and how it continues forward in the rest of the steps. When we get to steps 8 and 9, we're going to talk about the attribute of consideration. Love and tolerance of others, 2 attributes that come out of step 10, and of course, service is an attribute. Service grows in us by the time we get to step 12, and as we continue forward living in step 12, one day at a time. Quick review before we get into the deep dive into step 6 here. In steps 1, 2, and 3, I did become honest about my alcoholism illness. Now, I know some of you are like me. In fact, I've heard a couple of your inventories, so there's a couple of people on here that have heard my inventory. And I came anyway today, so there you have that, Julie. I became honest about the fact that I just have this illness. It's not a moral failure. The alcoholism illness in and of itself is not a character defect. But my drinking had become objectionable. Now you think back to the first time you drank, think back to the early days. Your drinking was not objectionable to you. My drinking was not objectionable to me. In fact, it became the most important thing in my life within 2 or 3 years of starting to drink. My drinking was not objectionable to me. But what I've learned today is my drinking was objectionable to everybody else for a long time. So when you look back at steps 1, 2, and 3, one of the first things I became honest about was how objectionable my drinking became. And we're going to see this word objectionable used in step 6. It's a very, very forgiving word used in the text of Alcoholics Anonymous. I became honest about my illness, about my objectionable drinking, and I finally became honest about my need for a spiritual solution because I couldn't overcome it by myself. Steps 4 and 5, I discover my selfish motivations. Did you see that? My selfish motivations, notwithstanding what they did to me. I discover my selfish motivations. I asked God to save me from being angry. That was the beginning prayer on page 67. The beginning of forgiveness is God save me from being angry. We talked about that in step 4 and 5. When I ask God to save me from being angry, I begin to get guidance away from my unforgiving nature. I did not know I had an unforgiving nature. I just thought all of you were wrong. I just thought if all of you would behave and do things my way and agree with me and go along with my latest bright idea, everything would be hunky-dory. Not so much. I had an unforgiving nature. And I had to get over my unforgiving nature to begin to see some of my other character defects, because until I take my focus off of you, until I take my focus off the other people that I thought were in my way, getting in my way, not letting me have my way, until I can begin to do that, I can't see the rest of my character defects, and I can't begin to let go of my unforgiving nature without asking God for help with that. So that was a pretty big deal for me. And it guides me toward forgiveness. Forgiveness doesn't mean agreement or approval. It just means live and let live. I also found out I needed God's help to guide me to be more considerate of others, and that took a while. But in the process of those first 5 steps, I have begun to develop a humility. Not humiliation, not less than, not more than. The simple definition of humility, a desire to seek and do God's will. When we look at the top of page 72, which we talked about last time, going into step 5, this is a big book. You all familiar with this? Mine has duct tape on it to hold it together, but it still qualifies as a big book. It has duct tape, so I guess it's a little bit bigger by a millimeter. Top of page 72 says this, and yes, we're getting to step 6 any minute, Chris. Having made our personal inventory, okay, that's coming off of step 4. I'm at the top of page 72 in the big book. Having made our personal inventory, what should we do about it? Good question. We're going to find out that we need to share it with another human being, otherwise we won't get honest enough with ourselves. We sure won't begin to develop any healthy humility. He tells us what we're going to do with it. More importantly, this is one of the few whys, W-H-Y. The big book is mainly a how and when and with whom. It's not a big book on why, but here's a really important why in the big book. We have been trying to get a new attitude. Rearrangement, displacement of my ideas, attitudes, and emotions. We've been trying to get a new relationship with our Creator. I didn't really know that. You can do the step 3 prayer and not realize you're trying to get a new relationship with the God of your understanding. Here's the kicker. I'm trying to get a new attitude. I'm trying to get a new relationship with the power I need to help me. And here's where we're going to get into 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Discover the obstacles in our path. The obstacles in my path to my spiritual awakening, to my new relationship with the higher power, are in me. This is vital to my spiritual awakening, my sobriety, my living reasonably happy and serene. The obstacles to my relationship with the God of my understanding, the God of my understanding from whom I need the help. The really good news that Alcoholics Anonymous discloses to us in 5 and 6 is that the obstacles are in me. That stuff I wrote on the inventory is not to make me feel bad about myself. It's to take the focus off of them, let them go for the minute. Not that they didn't do anything wrong or harmful to me, but set that aside for a minute so that you and God in the big book can help me dive down into what in me is participating, causing my blockage, helping me to be distant from, not in relationship with God. These defects are about to be cast out. The tie, Teresa asked about the tie. This is Charlie Brown fishing, Chris. Charlie Brown is fishing, and every night, even Charlie Brown will now and then catch a fish. Even Charlie Brown will now and then catch a fish. But what does he do? He does catch and release. So Charlie Brown's always letting go. He catches a fish, but he learns to let it go. It's catch and release. So step 6 is about letting go. Tina said, this is a good step 6 tie. So Stephen agrees, and if Stephen and I agree, the rest of you just need to deal with it. Thank you, Stephen. Defects are about to be cast out. Get it? Let's look at page 75. Oh, no, first, we need one reader, Chris. Top of page 76, first paragraph. One person to read step 6.
Okay, I need somebody raising their hand to read. I'm looking. Okay, Katie.
If we can answer to our satisfaction, we then look at step 6. We have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? Can He now take them all, every one? If we still cling to something we will not let go, we will ask God to help us to be willing.
See how easy it is to drive right past that? That was it. That was it. That was step 6. So let's put on the brakes. We just sailed through that little old town up there in northwestern, or was it northeastern? It's up in northern Alabama. Beep, beep, back up the truck. Let's go back and take a look at the power buried in this one simple little paragraph. And to begin, we have to begin with that first question. If we can answer to our satisfaction, stop right there, comma, pause. If we can answer to our satisfaction. I hope you're asking yourself, answer what? Turn back to the bottom of page 75. Bottom of page 75. We're just finishing step 5. We've gone to it. We've illuminated every dark cranny, every place we never wanted to look from the past. And then we read the promises in the middle of page 75. Now read the bottom 7 or 8 lines. I'm going to read them out loud. We're going to take them one at a time. Carefully reading. Notice this. Bottom of page 75. Carefully reading the first 5 proposals. What first 5 proposals? It's the first 5 steps. Where do you find those? Where the 12 steps are summarized on the first 2 pages of how it works, specifically page 59. First 11 steps are on page 59. Step 12 is on the top of page 60. The first 5 proposals means the first 5 steps, not the explanation of them, but the summary of them. All page 59 is a summary. And we're going to see the difference today in step 6. We're going to really use step 6 as one of the better examples of the danger. Danger, caution, flashing yellow, going red soon. The danger of trying to work the steps off of page 59. Are you and your sponsor thinking you can work the steps off the window shade hanging on the wall of the meeting house? Page 59 does not tell us a thing about how to work the step. It's not even a complete statement of the step. Page 59 is simply a list of proposals. It's a summary of the step. So we review the first 5 proposals. We review the first 5 steps, which hopefully we have used page 63 to page 75 to work, because the instructions for 3, 4, 5 are on page 63 to page 75. The first 60 pages were 1 and 2. If we can answer, carefully reading the first 5 proposals, we ask if we have admitted anything. See, this is a very important pause. It's a pause with profound, as honest as I can be, reflection as I go into step 6. Bottom of page 75 is the bridge, the transition, coming right out of step 5 into step 6. And there is no waiting period. You don't wait 2 weeks to do this. You come home. He says, go home after an hour and review this stuff. So there's a continuous body of activity from step 5 right into step 6. We review if we've admitted anything, for we're building an arch through which we shall walk a free person at last. Free, freedom from the bondage of self. That refers back to the step 3 prayer. God, relieve me of the bondage of self. When he says walk through it as a free person, freedom from the bondage of self. Here are the 5 questions. You ready? If we have omitted anything. Okay, now here's my translation of these 5 questions. You may have a different application. I'm going to share my application with you. It has worked for me and a lot of men that I've worked with. If we have omitted anything, have I lied? Surprisingly, alcoholics have been known to lie in their 4th step and even lie in their 5th step. Not that you would. Don't take this personally. It's just a general question that is worth taking one more peek at before we move into step 6. Have I omitted anything? Have I lied? See, this is translating English into alcoholic. Look at the second question. Is our work solid so far? Is it honest? Yes, lied and honest are 2 sides of the same coin. But being alcoholics, we have to ask both questions. Because I can say, yeah, I lied, I left something out, and not remember that I didn't go far enough and I wasn't completely honest. So yes, to some people, these 2 questions mean the same thing, but not an alcoholic. Have you lied? No. Have you been honest? You need to ask both of them. I mean, it's not that important. It's just that your life depends upon it. That's all. If you want to learn to live comfortable, not drink, your life depends on getting this stuff as accurate as we can. Look at the third question. Are the stones properly in place? Okay, he's staying with this metaphor of building the arch. Are the stones properly in place? Have I moved the focus to me off of them? If I'm still using stepping stones, blaming them for stuff, if I'm still using stepping stones coming out of step 5, I wouldn't have done this if she hadn't have done that. I still got to focus on her. I'm not going to focus on me. During the 4th and 5th step, if I do the step the way it's written in the book, pages 64 to 75, I will take the focus off them and put the focus on me, whether I like it or not. That's where God starts to do for me what I can't do for myself. You don't have to know that for it to be happening. Just do the work the way the verbs are written in the big book. Are the stones properly in place? Is the focus on me, not them? Here's a really busy building metaphor. Have we skimped on the cement put into the foundation? Anybody ever try to build a foundation just with sand and water without the cement to hold it together? Literally and metaphorically, I'm here to tell you. Have we skimped on the cement put into the foundation? Have we told a partial truth? We're back to being honest. 3 of these 5 questions directly deal with being honest. And then finally, have we tried to make mortar without sand? Have we omitted prayer? All the prayers in the 4th step on pages 67, 68, 69, and 70. I worked that step out of the big book more than once and skipped every prayer and wondered why I didn't get the full benefit. If you're working the 4th step now and you're not paying attention to the prayers, every time you see ask God, or we ask God, or we ask God for this, or we ask someone to help us ask, that's called a prayer. It doesn't matter if you like it. It doesn't even matter if you understand it. But trying to work 4 and 5 without praying is making mortar without sand. That little old sandcastle you built at low tide looks great. Take a picture, send it to Aunt Mabel out in Tucumcari. Oh, look what we did on the beach today in Pensacola. Looks good, looks strong, looks like a sand fort till high tide. Till something in life washes up and you go out and the sand castle is a little mound of sand. That's me doing my 4th and 5th step without prayer. So you answer those questions to the best of your ability. I actually like to do it with the men. When I do a fifth step, I say, well, let's go through the 5 questions now, and then you go home and do it again in your privacy, and increases the odds they'll do it. That's all. I have no control. Are they done? So look at the 2 magnificent standards, humility and responsibility, and the attribute of trust. Let's get into step 6 in detail. We're talking humility and trust in step 6. She read a little bit ago, if we can answer to our satisfaction. Okay, we've talked about the 5 questions. Check those before you go any further. If we can answer to our satisfaction, we then look at step 6. We have emphasized willingness. You can go back through your book. Willingness begins in the doctor's opinion. Willingness runs through Bill's story. There is a solution, more about alcoholism. Willingness is full in the chapter We Agnostics. How does willingness begin? By becoming less unwilling. By becoming less unwilling. Willing to be willing. Willing to believe you can help me become unwilling. I don't care how small. I don't care how infinitesimal you feel like your willingness is. It's enough to begin. God can work with 1 grain of sand of willingness. We have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Indispensable in Alcoholics Anonymous means can't live without it. Indispensable doesn't mean the bananas won't look good. I'm going to buy the apples. I can live without bananas this week. No. Indispensable means I can't live without it. So then here's the first question in step 6. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? This is not asking God to do it. We're going to ask God to do this in step 7. This question in step 6 is a preview of step 7, but we are not ready yet to ask God to remove anything. What we are ready to do is ask ourselves if I'm ready to let it happen. And we're going to see in a minute, we're going to circle back to willingness. This is kind of a setup, but it's a perfect alcoholic setup, because first he says, we've emphasized willingness as being indispensable. And we all sit and nod and say, yeah, man, you're right. That willingness is really important. Man, that willingness is indispensable. I'm all in for the willingness. And then he says, really? Are you ready to let God remove the stuff from you that you've now admitted is objectionable about you? Not about them. We got rid of that in 4 and 5. And then I sit back and say, well, you may be overdoing this willingness thing a little bit. I mean, I got to get help to let go of the stuff. I can't just stop doing it. This is a profound question. And like I said, I used to breeze right by it like a small town. Didn't even see the stop sign until I was 10 miles out of town and saw the light in my rearview mirror. And he told me I missed the stoplight. Sheriff. Nothing like an Alabama sheriff, I'll tell you. His name is Roland. Sheriff Roland. Are we now ready? Now, by the way, if you've been around a long time, if you have some long-term recovery, you have some long-term sobriety under your belt, this is still not a dumb question. In fact, the danger of long-term recovery, Marky talked about it this morning, one of the great dangers of long-term recovery is thinking I don't need help anymore. One of the dangers of long-term recovery is thinking I don't have objectionable behavior anymore. I don't have objectionable desires anymore. I don't have objectionable motivations anymore. A common delusion among all men and women, a deadly delusion among members of Alcoholics Anonymous and other 12-step communities who are, after all, here to treat our selfishness. Remember the diagnosis. Selfishness, self-centeredness, we think, is the root of our trouble, page 62. Liquor is but a symptom. Obsession with other people is but a symptom. Selfishness, self-centeredness is the root of our trouble. And so when we ask the question, are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? That list of objectionable things when you're new is one thing. That list of objectionable things when you've been robbing around this thing 41 years, I've made a good beginning. I'm starting to get it. But I know good and well on any given day, there's something in me that should be objectionable to me and probably already is objectionable to others. So let's talk about the word objection. Here's what's happening in step 6. Step 6 is growing my humility, my desire to seek and do God's will. Why? Because I'm beginning to realize, even after I see this stuff isn't working for me, even after I see this stuff is hurting me and others, it's why it's become objectionable to me, and I want to stop doing it. I can't stop doing it. In step 6, if I'm paying attention, I begin to learn to trust God enough to change or remove the ideas, emotions, and attitudes. Read page 27, Dr. Young talking to Roland Hazard. To remove or change the ideas, attitudes, and emotions that I have finally admitted are objectionable to me. You know the first objectionable thing I admitted to? My drinking. I talked about that a few minutes ago. My drinking finally became objectionable to me. The consequences of my drinking really became objectionable to me. I stopped drinking, I get sober, I get to work in the 12 steps with the sponsor in AA, and lo and behold, I found out my drinking had been objectionable to everybody else for a long time. Well, guess what? Everything else I discover in step 6 and later that becomes objectionable to me, lying, cheating, stealing, sarcasm, inconsideration. Everything that finally becomes objectionable to me has already been objectionable to everybody else for a long time. Drinking is just the first in a long line of things that become objectionable to me about me. And then I discover, they've been bugging other people for a long time. And what I learned to do in 6, and I'm going to learn to do by application in step 7, I begin to learn to trust in God's strength and God's ability to do something about it. Because even after I want to stop doing, even after I want to stop being, even after I want to stop desiring the objectionable things, I find out I can't stop doing it on my own. I cannot let go. Because step 6 is a let go step. Step 3 is not the let go step. Step 6 is a let go step. I don't have enough detail in step 3 to let go except generally relieve me of the bondage of self. Now I've got the detail coming out of 4 and 5. I know what my column 4 or my column 5 or my column 6, depending on the format. I know the answer to those questions about what part did you play in it. I know the answer to the questions, what was my responsibility? Whoa, take the focus off them, put the focus on me, start to see the part I played in it. The objectionable things that I need to stop doing. And then I can't stop on my own. So I learned to trust God. And here's what I'm really admitting. You know, we said back on page 62, the diagnosis, I admit that my selfishness, self-centeredness is the root of my trouble. You read page 62 a little further down, it says, I admit that I've been driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. I admit that. On page 63 in the step 3 prayer, I actually said, God, relieve me of the bondage of self. I'm begging God to help me here. In the resentment inventory on page 67, I discover where I've been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened. In my fear inventory, I have this sentence on page 68. I'm afraid because self-reliance finally fails me. As good as self-reliance does, it doesn't go far enough. And in my sexual conduct inventory, which is really about inconsideration of others, I discover that at page 69 in the big book, I've been selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate. in my relations with others, not just the sexual, but every relationship with others. I've been inconsiderate. Doesn't take their feelings, their desires, their priorities, their opinion, their wisdom. I don't take any of that into account. And so he says to us on page 68, self-reliance was good as far as it went, but it didn't go far enough. By the time I get to step 6, if I'm letting that stuff sink in, my so-called defects of character, which are disclosed to me in 4, where do they all come from? They all have a common source. My defects of character as a human being, not just as an alcoholic. My defects of character come from my unlimited, undirected, unguided self-will. Self-will is not a defect of character. Self-will, free will, is a gift from God. It's part of our makeup. Every human being has self-will. That's not the character defect. The character defect is having no limits on my self-will. The character defect is not wanting any guidance for my self-will. The character defect is absolutely refusing to have any direction for my self-will except me. My little evil twin Gil, the dark side of Bill, little Gil, who's with me all the time, and those of you that have been around the last year or two know about Gil. We're not all that happy about Gil, but he won't go away, so we just have to make him part of the mix. We have to deal with the little fellow. He's always whispering, you don't need any help. You have another good idea. They don't matter. They don't agree. Get them out of the way, roll over them, run by them, run the other way and circle around and come in behind them. They don't matter. Your way is what's important. We want you to feel comfortable at their expense. Unlimited, undirected, unguided self-will. Not getting help, not getting direction with my self-will is where all these character defects come from. In step 5, my inability to change, to reduce, or eliminate my defects of character on my own is disclosed to me in that discussion with my sponsor and my spiritual advisor. Sometime, hopefully during 5, maybe answering those 5 questions at the bottom of page 75, and hopefully by the time you ask this question in step 6, my defects of character have become objectionable to me. Newsflash. Watch this. Even after I know my defects of character, until they become objectionable enough to me to want to change them, and then try to change them on my own and realize I can't. It's just like trying to stop drinking on my own. I will not seek more help. I will not seek more spiritual help until my defects of character have become admitted by me, become objectionable enough to want to change, try to change on my own, and throw in the towel again. Just like I had to throw in the towel after step 1, I have to throw in the towel again during step 6. He says in the resentment inventory, we can't wish them away. He says this at the bottom of page 66. We cannot wish our resentments away any more than we could alcohol. The same comparison applies here to any other objectionable thing. And it doesn't matter how long it's been since I had a drink. You know who I woke up with today? Well, yeah, Tina. Yeah, Jane. I know I woke up with Tina. Very good, Jane. But I woke up with me. And Gil. Now, by the way, Gil doesn't sleep. Most of me has to sleep. Gil doesn't apparently sleep because he's always awake 2 hours before I am. He's got a committee that he chairs, and they've got a long list of stuff for me to worry about when I wake up. If I'm not careful, I start going down the trail of objectionable behavior in my head before I'm out of bed. Please, particularly if you've been around a while, don't think we are ever free of the temptation to ignore or explain away or rationalize or justify objectionable behavior. The capability to ignore my objectionable behavior or to think I can handle it on my own, that I don't need help, The capability is always there. Why are they objectionable? Well, on the first glance, they seem to be objectionable because they cause problems in my life, and I see they're causing problems in other people's life a little bit. I mean, you people exaggerate a lot about my behavior, but you know the real reason they're objectionable? The real reason my defects of character are objectionable is that they disable my humility. They block me from desiring, seeking, receiving, and trusting the help I can receive from God. The bottom line is, by definition, a behavior is objectionable when it blocks me from seeking and receiving the help I need from God. It can even block me from desiring the help I need from God. And that's the real spiritual problem with objectionable behavior. We're after a spiritual awakening here. We're not just after not drinking. We're after a spiritual awakening. We're after a relationship with the God of our understanding, an intimate, daily, living, step-by-step living relationship with the God of our understanding. Every piece of objectionable behavior in me drives a wedge in that relationship. It's a separation. This is really, really serious if you want recovery. If you're just here to not drink, better than nothing. But if you want to learn to live serene, comfortable, content, even when the world is going to hell in a handbasket, apparently, even when the people in the neighborhood, even when the people in the condo association are putting their trash out too early and they're leaving the cans out the next day. Horror of horrors. They left their trash cans out overnight. What are we going to do, Martha? Call a meeting. The real reason my defects of character are objectionable is they disable my humility, my desire to seek and do God's will. They get in the way of the very help I need to get the help I need. So the next question is clear. Can he now take them all, every one? Seems simple. Yeah. Take them, God. I'm ready to unload the wheelbarrow. You got these trucks running around your neighborhood. I don't know about you folks in the UK and Hawaii and elsewhere, but in the US, there's whole businesses now advertising, we pick up your junk. You see them all over the town. All you got to do is make a phone call. And when they get there, all you have to do is point. Take that. Take that. And they'll take it. They don't ask any questions. They probably don't take something that's nuclear, but short of that, it sounds like they take pretty much anything. That's the attitude I need to have. Can he now take them all, every one? Let me translate this question as it means to me. Here's what I understand this to mean. Can he now take, can God? Can a power greater than myself? Did I become willing to give a chance? You can act like you're trusting God in step 3. You can ask God the prayers in 4. You can even ask God to go with you doing your 5th step. But step 6 is where my face is against the pane of glass. Am I going to truly try to trust God or not? Can he now take them all, every one? Am I willing to trust God to guide my will in my life, which is my choices and their consequences? That all step 3 asked me to do. Turn my will and my life over. Make the decision to learn how. Turn my will and my life over. My will are my choices. My life are the consequences of my choices, including how I deal with other people's choices. That's all it is. It's not complicated. Terribly simple. Can I trust God to guide me? And do I have enough humility to trust God? Because I'm going to be in relationship with God from here going forward. If you don't want to be in relationship with a God that will love you and help you, stop right now and try it your way. If you want to be in a relationship with a God of love and understanding that you can trust to help you even when you don't like it or don't know it, continue. I've done it both ways. I like continuing. I think 6 through 12 make a big difference in my life. The only reason I do the first 5 steps is to make these choices in step 6. First 5 steps are preparation for these prayers, these additional level of willingness we experience if we work step 6. So what did I pray in 3? I prayed for God's power, God's love, and God's way of life. That's the end of the step 3 prayer on page 63. That wasn't a one-shot deal that I walk away and turn my back on my desire for God's power, God's love, and God's way of life. I'm starting to move into that now in step 6. Now I trust God to remove my defects of character. I'm going to be accessing God's power. I'm going to be accessing God's love, and I'm going to be moving along in God's way of life. I humbly realize desire to seek and do God's will. I cannot wish them away any more than I could my resentments. My humble, God knows I need the help. That's another version of humble. Desire to seek and do God's will is strong enough to set aside my selfish resistance. There is a part of me that resists the process after I know it's good for me. That's weird, but that's human nature. Even after I know it's good for me, my resist, that's part of me. I think Gilda leads that parade. I resist. You ever in one of those restaurants, they come out with a really hot dish? Mexican restaurants are fond of this. The guy serving the thing has got that glove all the way up above his elbow. The thing is about 2 inches thick, must be pure asbestos, with that steaming fajitas tray, and they set it down and say, be careful, this is really hot. Don't touch it. What's my response? Right, Stephen, how hot is it? I know. I've been in these restaurants a long time, and I've gotten a hot fajita platter a lot. I know how hot it is. I know it's good for me. I know it's really good for me. Don't touch it. My first response is, how hot is it? I turned 80 in March. I'm pretty sure that's not going to go away. I'm pretty sure the next time I get the hot fajita tray, I'm going to say, how hot is it? Now, I used to say I'm an idiot. No, I'm not an idiot. I'm just human. I'm also German. That explains part of it. But Lord have mercy, it's not just alcoholic. Or how about this? You're in the park and walking, nice day, beautiful day with your wife. The butterflies are out. The birds are all happy. Nobody's pooping. The birds, I mean. The birds aren't pooping. And you get to that corner in the park with the little bench, and it's spring and everything's fresh. It says wet paint. What's that mean? Don't touch. What's the first? How wet is it? And just past that bench, because the walk takes a curve, nice little sign, neatly printed. Andrea probably made it over there in Kansas and sent them out. Just a neat little sign. Don't walk on the grass. What's my next step? Can I get away with it? I'm not making this up. These are 3 of the most dangerous situations in my life. How hot is it? How wet is the paint? Don't walk on the grass. And those are symbols for everything else. So my humble desire to seek and do God's will is strong enough to set aside my selfish resistance. My denial. My denial takes 2 forms. It's not a problem. I don't need help with it. My defiance takes 2 forms. It's not a problem. I don't need help with it. The only difference is I'm conscious of my defiance. My denial is happening somewhere below the conscious, but they're the same thing. It's not a problem. I don't need help with it. Even if it is a problem, I don't need help with it. And then doubt. Maybe I do need help, but there probably isn't any. How about this? This is the ace of spades of self-pity. If there's a deck of cards for self-pity, this is the ace of spades of self-pity. They'll probably help Debbie. God will probably pay attention and help Debbie, but God won't help me. Pour me, pour me, pour me a drink. doubt. Yeah, I hear you talk about God helping you, but He probably won't help me. There may be some people here today that feel that way, and I'm not making fun of you. I'm relating. I understand. I haven't been that way lately, but I was at my spring men's retreat this weekend. By the way, I got a little sun. Can you tell? Got some sun out there around the campfire. Not that I'm proud of my tan. I just like it. Maybe I am a little proud of my tan. I don't. If that's objectionable to you, forgive me. But I'm going to brag about it all summer. If you'll have me back. There were some young men there. There was 3 men there, their first retreat. They're all 2 years sober or less. They're beginning to see, now watch this, newcomer, they're beginning to see that their behavior, their inconsideration of others, really has caused them some problems. And one of the things I love about the retreat, we've been started these retreats in Florida in 1990, Sanibel Survivors, 91 or 90. We carried the retreat to St. Louis in 96 or 97, so I've been doing these retreats over 30 years. One of the things I love about every retreat, it's like the newcomer coming to and realizing there's so much more to recovery than not drinking. And we always have an old timer there, or two, 20 years or more, who is rediscovering that there's more to this recovery deal than just not drinking, that treating self-will run riot is a continuous daily process. And we had at least one guy this weekend, who had it usually happens by Saturday afternoon. We start the meetings on Friday night around a campfire, got a Saturday morning meeting. Third meeting is Saturday after lunch. And the Saturday afternoon meeting is usually where somebody goes, aha, I see the light. And they do it in front of these other men, which is sensational because men don't like to be vulnerable for a while. And they realize not God can do for me what I can't do for myself, but they realize God has been doing for me what I could not do for myself. And I didn't see it until this afternoon. I sit and wait because you never know who it's going to be. It could be a newcomer, it could be an old timer, but it happens every retreat. And it happened again this weekend, Saturday afternoon. Actually, it happened to 2 guys. And they have this beautiful light bulb. Aha! And I sit back and say, it works. To myself. It really does. It's a reaffirming manifestation of the 12-step recovery program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And so much of it has to do with what happens here in the middle of step 6. I humbly desire, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, but I develop this humble desire to seek and receive and trust God's help by just trying to do God's will. The can in this question, can he now take them all, everyone? The can, C-A-N, does not question God's capability to do it. That's not what this question means. It does not mean, can God do it? That's not what this means. It questions my humble willingness to trust God and give him a chance to do it. Can he now take them all, everyone, is not about God. It's about me. Am I at the point now seeing, after 4 and 5, some degree of the seriousness of my objectionable desires, motivations, actions, speaking, lying, cheating, stealing, so on and so forth? Do I now see how objectionable they are, how threatening they are to me, and troublesome for other people, and blocking me from the help I need from God? Am I willing to let God have a chance at removing these from me? This is where the let go really starts to take root. Am I really willing to let go? Fighting against the part of me that doesn't know what my life is going to be like if I stop doing this stuff that I think has been saving me from trouble all these years. Our sponsor in Florida used to call these letting go of my defense mechanisms. Lying, cheating, stealing, sober was the only way I knew how to live. Can does not question God's capability. 10 questions my humble willingness to trust God and let go. So finally, we get to this question. Here's the payoff of step 6. As powerful as what I've talked about the last 30 minutes really is, this is the payoff. If we still cling. He could have used a lot of different words, but cling. Don't you just love cling? A lot of people have said in recovery, I haven't let go with anything that didn't have really long scratch marks. The cat clinging to the drapery. You ever tried to take a cat off a drapery that wasn't ready to let go? I don't know why cats like to hang on the drape. I've never been a cat, can't relate. You ever tried to take a cat that was clinging, particularly a nice thick linen drape where the claws really had some material, they had some substance to sink into. And it's a big cat. You know, people talk all the time how hard it is to herd cats. Well, it's hard to get cats to uncling too. If we still cling to something, we will not let go. Gee, where's the problem here? It's not you anymore. I'm the one hanging on. I may still be, I know it's step 6. I know I did a resentment inventory way back in 4, even on the other side of 5. But I may still be clinging onto a resentment. You think? I haven't begun to pray, God save me from being angry. I don't want to. She doesn't deserve to be forgiven. I'm not going to forgive her until she makes amends to me. I'll show her. I'll sit here and keep drinking the resentment poison, waiting for her to die. Ha! Cling, I tell ya. If we still cling to some, I may be clinging on to some fears. You know how you get rid of fear? You start trusting God with the fear. It's okay to go into step 6 still holding on to a lot of fear. God knows how to deal with this. I'm still clinging on to inconsiderate behavior because I'm not willing to take the risk of listening to their opinion and let them have their own way and even care about how they feel. I don't know how to live any way but inconsiderate. So I'm still going. You're still going to have resentment, fear, and inconsiderate behavior going into 6. It's okay. AA gives you pass. However, we at least need to know we're clinging. And yes, for the Star Trek fans, this is the Klingon moment. Oh, hey, had to get that in there. Probably only about 9 Star Trek fans left. Who knows? If we still cling. If. Isn't that a funny word? Who isn't clinging? If you're in this meeting, you're probably a clinger. Sorry, Chris, even you, baby. If you're not sure, talk to Lori. She'll help you. She wants to help you with this. So, circle if in your book. If you haven't already done it, circle the word if here and put a little happy face. If you can I'm not good enough to draw a smirk. What I'd really like to do is draw a smirk. But just draw a happy face because if is really funny. Who is it? Look, Karen actually did it. She drew it. Good for you, Karen. Thank you. All I need is one person to do what I ask, and I feel so fulfilled. You have enriched my life, darling. If we still cling to something, we will not let go, comma, pause. Here's step 6. We ask God to help us be willing. We ask God to help us be willing. God, help me be willing to let go of these things I have now written about in step 4, talked about and listened to my sponsor talk to me about in step 5, that I have now admitted, as much as I thought they were helping me, as much as they thought they were my friend, as much as I think today I can't live without lying, cheating, stealing in some circumstances with some people, because after all, they just can't be trusted. With all of that cooking, God, please help me be willing to let go, not knowing how you're going to do it, not knowing when you're going to do it, but knowing you are going to do it. This is profound. We ask God to help us be willing. You know what the irony is here? I'm asking God, I'm not sure I can trust yet, to help me be willing to trust God. It's not a trick. It's how we get enough of us out of the way to give God a chance when we don't even know if God's going to pull it off. And it's okay to admit that. Way back in We Agnostics, he said, be willing to be willing. Just being willing to be willing is a sufficient beginning. And here we have a manifestation of it again, right here in step 6. We ask God to help us be willing. What am I doing? I'm praying. Step 6 is a couple of questions, refers back to 5 questions on the bottom of 75, so that the prayers I make in step 6 have substance. They're based on reality, not some fiction that I've overheard somebody misstate in a meeting. When I get down to the mother prayer in step 6, God, help me be willing. It's now based on specific information about my character defects, and they don't work for me. They never did work for me, and the illusion that they work for me has to be let go. Part of what I'm letting go, perhaps a large part of what I'm letting go, is not the behavior. It's the illusion that the behavior works for me. Part of what I'm beginning to let go in step 6 is not just the lying, cheating, stealing, selfish, inconsiderate, dangerous, damaging behavior, words and deeds. It's letting go of the illusion that that stuff ever was my friend. Just like letting go of the illusion that alcohol was my friend, that alcohol was my solution, not my problem. It's just like letting go of that illusion, only it goes so much deeper, because this is where we begin to have the rearrangement and displacement of ideas, attitudes, and emotions that Dr. Jung talked about with Roland Hazard in the early 1930s. We ask God, and it's not necessarily a one-shot prayer. You may have to pray this 15 times a day for several days. And your Gil, your evil twin, your dark side is going to fight against it. Inevitable. So here's what's really going. I pray to trust God enough. Progress, not perfection. I pray to trust God enough to help me become humble enough to desire to seek and do God's will. Because now I'm in relationship with God. Even though it's cautious and tentative, and I don't know if God's going to work or not. By the time you get into step 6, answering those questions on the bottom of 75, God, help me be willing. We're in relationship now with God. Don't have to understand it. Don't even have to like it. Don't have to talk about it. You can keep it secret between you and God. You don't have to go to work on Monday and say, oh, guess what? I did my step 6 Saturday. I'm now in relationship with God. You can do that if you want. Most of the time they're not interested and a little afraid when you do that, but you don't have to tell anybody. But I'm in relationship with God at this point. Thank you. Thank you.
See you tomorrow.
No, not, we just deliver it and we go to the next job. Yes, have a good one.
God bless. Son.
We just had a little room full of drywall delivered. It's been exciting being with you and them at the same time. It's really been fun. Tina said, why don't you move the computer upstairs? I said, oh, I think this will be fun. No. You can't sell too many tickets to the circus. You cannot oversell the circus. That's all there is to it. Build a bigger tent, Carl. What am I risking here? I'm risking trusting that God can and will help me let go. See, we're not to the let God yet. I'm asking it to help me become willing to let go, to see the foolishness, the deadliness, the illusion that I thought lying, cheating, stealing were necessary or inevitable. I'm asking God to help me be willing to let go of the objectionable things that I have now admitted are objectionable to me. And it's actually a fairly short list. Lying covered a good part of my inventories. Cheating covered a good part of, all the episodes, but it was a lot of stuff boils down to lying and cheating and stealing, and not just stealing stuff, stealing other people's peace of mind, stealing my children's feeling of security, stealing my boss's trust. Stealing covers a lot of ground. I'm going to risk trusting. During this, God help me be willing to let go. God help me be willing to let go. I'm taking the risk to trust God, that God can and will help me let go of my objectionable things, my defects of character that are blocking me from God. And that's the most important reason they're objectionable. So in step 6, to sum this all up, and then we'll talk about a few observations and be done in 10 minutes or so. In step 6, I pray in trust that God has the power, to help me humbly let go of my objectionable things, my defects of character that are blocking me from the help I need from God. For what? For my personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism. Remember to read page 567 in the Spiritual Experience, Spiritual Awakening, Appendix 2. All I'm trying to do here is change my person. I can't change my personality. I worked the 12 steps to let you and God help me change my personality sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism. And as Marky said this morning, recovery from alcoholism is a lot more than not drinking, because alcoholism is self-will run riot. So I'm really treating this unguided, unlimited, undirected selfishness. In step 6, I become humble enough to trust God with helping me change, to let go of my defects of character so they can be cast out. I come to believe I can trust God. I pray and trust that God has the power to help me humbly let go of my objectionable things, my defects of character that are blocking me from the help I need from God, for my personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism. A lot in that little paragraph, isn't there? A lot in that little town in northeast Alabama. Well, here's a few observations on humility and trust in step 6, if you will indulge me. Okay, Alcoholics Anonymous disclosed to me that my drinking was objectionable. Stopping drinking gave me, and still does, give me physical sobriety. Stopping drinking did not give me humility and trust. Did not give me the personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism. All it did was let me become physically sober. Stay out of jail, not live in blackouts, but physical sobriety is wonderful, but it's a limited benefit. In step 3, I admitted enough of my selfishness, the root of my troubles, to ask God to relieve me of the bondage of self. Page 63, step 3 prayer. so I can do God's will. I offered that up back in step 3. In steps 4 and 5, I humbly admit to the objectionable defects of my character that are blocking me from the help I need from God for my personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism. Before steps 4 and 5, I used anger to feel powerful. I used resentments to feel in control. I also used resentments to justify my unforgiving, inconsiderate treatment of others. I denied and stuffed my fears. Real men don't have fear. John Wayne never rode side saddle. Whatever the hell that means anymore. I defied any attempt, and I really did. I defied any attempt by anyone to help me. I don't need help with that. I can figure it out. Never ridden a bicycle before in my life. But I've seen other people do it. How hard can it be? I found out how hard it can be. And I'm talking a 2-wheeler here. I'm not talking about a 3-wheeler. I defied any attempt by anyone to help me with anything. I sure doubted God. If you know it all, you don't need God. There's a warning. If I'm back in know-it-all mode, I've already decided I don't need God. Look at this one. In step 3, asking God to relieve me of the bondage of self was a decision based on faith in the unknown. I didn't realize it at the time, but step 3 was my first real step into the unknown in recovery. In the unknown that God could and would if he were sought, our book says. In step 6, big difference between 6 and 3. In step 6, I humbly make a decision to trust that God can and will help me be willing enough to let go of the specific defects I've now had disclosed to me in step 4 and 5. Big difference, big movement, progress between step 3 and step 6. Step 6, then, face to face with this willingness to let go. Step 6 helps me recognize my lack of trust. By trying to trust God, I recognize my lack of trust. I have so little experience trusting others, much less God. My lack of trust in God, myself, and others. I humbly realize I need help from God and others. I grow in my willingness to trust that help is even available to me. Trust in God is not knowing what God's going to do. I repeat, trust in God does not mean I know what God's going to do. If I knew what God was going to do, I would be God and I wouldn't need him. Trust in God is believing God's strength. Trust in God is believing God's truth. Trust in God is believing God's reliability. In other words, trust in God is trusting God's character, regardless of what God's going to do. My trust is in God, not what God's going to do. And I needed to get over that. In step 6, I trust God to help me become willing and humble enough to let go of the objectionable things in me, not knowing how or when he's going to do it. Just beginning to trust that maybe he can. I humbly admit I cannot meet or fulfill my God-given desires, and they are God-given. We're all born with the normal human desires: physical safety, emotional and financial security, sexual comfort. Those are normal, healthy human desires. But I was trying to fill those with self-reliance alone. Self-will run riot. My self-will was even insufficient to keep me from taking the first drink. What makes me think it can cure all these other undesirable, unlimited, unguided uses of God-given desires? I need to trust a power greater than me. And that's where my relationship with God always begins. There is a God, and his name isn't Bill, that I know of. Well, that's a scary thought. Let's move on. My willingness to trust God to help me begins when I humbly admit I don't have all the answers. Any other know-it-alls in the room? No, half a dozen of you are honest. I think the rest of you are tired. I'm tired. We're going to stop soon. I don't have all the answers. I don't even have all the questions. One of the things I love about the big book, it asks the right questions. You know, until my defects of character become objectionable to me, I don't need help. You know, people say, oh my God, I see how bad I am. No, this is good news. Now you see how much help you need and you can get up and out of here. Recognition of character defect is not putting you in the penalty box. Recognition of character defects is the door opening to liberation. Praise God that we now see where we need help and we become painful enough to go find it. In step 6, I humbly trust God to help me stop denying my selfish motives, to humbly trust God to help me stop doing the wrong thing, the objectionable thing, the selfish thing. Step 6, I humbly realize, and this realization may come quickly, it may come slowly, but eventually, God grant me the willingness to let go. God grant me the willingness to let go. God grant me the willingness to let go. Eventually, I humbly realize I cannot tell. Now watch this. This is really tricky. I cannot tell the truth until I stop lying. I cannot be trusted until I stop cheating, including poker. I cannot become giving until I stop stealing. I trust God to help me not resent what I cannot control, to not fear what I don't understand, to stop being inconsiderate, to be motivated by interest in others, not frustration with others. And finally, in step 6, I take my 6th risk. We're closing each of these step studies with a little risk, and we're going to talk about all of them at the end of the series. In step 6, I take my 6th risk in the spiritual awakening of my recovery from alcoholism. What's the risk in step 6? I risk trusting God to help me be humble. The risk, the desire to do in God's will, not knowing what it's like, particularly in the beginning, feels really, really risky. I risk trusting God to help me be humble and willing to let go, to stop desiring, feeling, thinking, and doing the things that are blocking me from God's direction and strength. On page 59, you have this beautiful little sentence, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. That's step 6 in the summary. There's a lot more to it than that. A lot of prayer for willingness. So, hope that was helpful to some of you. Hope it wasn't too painful for any of you. Next time, stay tuned. Moving right along. Next time, responsibility and trust. We're going to go from the humility to the responsibility piece. Responsibility and trust in step 7. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Before we go on to the next part, you want to close us out with a prayer?
This is called the incomplete understanding. I don't know, did it get, it may have gotten posted. No? Oh, wait. It's one of these little prayers we wrote back in September. And I think it's appropriate for me anyway for step 6. It's called incomplete understanding. I have not heard everything that has been said to me. I have not seen everything that has appeared before me. I have not felt everything that I have experienced. I am human. I am incomplete. I am imperfect. I do things incompletely. I can only understand incompletely. Thank you, God, for being patient with me. Thank you, God, for forgiving me my incompleteness. Thank you, God, for continuing to disclose the same things to me over and over and over again. Thank you, God, for wanting me to understand your love for me, your care for me, your future for me. Thank you, God, for your vision for me. God, I thank you this day for your patience with my incomplete understanding. Please continue to disclose more to me each day, that I may better trust you, love myself as you have made me, and try to be of service to others and you today. Amen.
Thank you, Bill. Of all the times we've been together, this has been one of them.
Thank you, Chris.
We can all unmute now and thank the speaker.
Thank you, Bill.
You rock.
Thanks, Bill. That was awesome,
Thank
buddy.
you.